What's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way, and welcome back to my bootleg Pokemon challenge. If you are new here, the reason that I'm on Basecamp at the moment is because I am going to be drawing 3 of these little bootleg figurines that I have done dozens of, good chunk of already. Bag's getting pretty low, and this is episode, oh my gosh. It's something. I can't remember, but that's okay. The idea here being that I draw a little Pokemon, bootleg Pokemon from this baggie, and then based off of its bootlegged nature, or real-life animal traits, any other traits I feel like could apply to the Pokemon that I draw, I then kind of redesign them with a custom design. This is really just a fun way to do a random draw, and have something funny to look at, because these bootlegs be goofy. So, at that, let's just hop right into it and grab our first selection here. I do these in 3s. So our first selection shall be you. Oop. Oh no. It's Muck. Or is it Grimer? I don't know the difference, but Enhance. He's seen better days. He looks resolutely terrifying. It's like they made his face out of a person's face. It's like a normal action figure melted, and they were like, it's close enough to Muck. Alright. Keeping up with the poison types from last time, almost. Let's see our next selection. You. Oh, it's a Heracross. Well, kind of. Enhance. His eyes are insane. Oh my gosh. Just little, like, yellow dots. No pupils. Just a shadow figure of a Heracross. Okay, very blue, purplish assortment so far. The color schemes almost seem very similar. Alright, next selection. I've got one. This is a part of a clip. That's not a Pokemon. It was stuck to my thumb. Alright, final selection of the day. You. A Pikachu. A very colorless Pikachu. Enhance. So we got our mascot again. I think there are like 3 of these. Or maybe, I can't tell. I don't know how many Pikachu I've done. Yeah, there are 3 of these. So far, at least. This is, I think, one of the smallest ones. And the lightest. I mean, I did a Melanistic Pikachu. Maybe it's time I do a albino Pikachu. I've already done albinism a few times, but I feel like I've looped back around to a few other traits with slightly different naming conventions. So, cool. At that, I think that I'm just going to pop this right over to Speed Paint voiceover for you guys and show you what I have done with these 3 when we get there. So, I'll see you there. First up, we have the Muck, and yes, the figurine was a Muck. Maybe that was easy for some people to tell. Meanwhile, I'd forgotten that it was the second evolution and that Grimer was the first. Regardless, this line is pretty quick to get down because they're amorphous puddles of goo. I had a few ideas as to how I wanted to play with this design, mainly other forms of pollution. Standard Muck is kind of your generalized sludge, and a lowland Muck is a bit more like an oil spill, and they are both inherently really toxic. I briefly considered one inspired by the elephant's foot at Chernobyl, but I feel like that might be a step too far. Instead, I decided to go for a more industrial. Initially, I was going to do concrete, but ultimately decided to make it asphalt. This is another one of those situations where I essentially make a regional variant, because I feel like this might be a bit more of a ground type. I imagine this variant of Muck chills out in industrial zones, obviously, but because it can look like regular road tar, it might get painted while it's sleeping. Fittingly, I named this guy Tarmac. Maybe this variant also offers a little bit of help, kind of acting like a road paver on older stretches of road. I could also imagine this being like a possible hazard Pokemon to run into while like riding your bike, whereas other Pokemon usually stay off of the bike paths. Tarmac here is a construction worker's Pokemon though, and helps fill potholes. Next up, we have the Heracross. This is probably one of the Pokemon I have never really fully looked at. Like, it makes sense, but it's not quite as personified as Pokemon can get, especially bug Pokemon. It's just a weird little Weevil. If I were drawing this from memory, I would probably totally forget several key features if I could draw it at all. Those antennae probably wouldn't make it. As much as Heracross is likely more of a weevil or a rhino beetle, its body kind of reminds me a bit of a scarab, maybe just because it's a beetle. I know we have a dung beetle Pokemon now too, but still. And one variety I feel like would be super cool to see would be the jewel scarab, which comes in a huge range of colors, including gold. They also have sort of red little legs, so I added that to this design as well for a little bit more interest. I named this boy Khepri after the Egyptian god depicted with the head of, you guessed it, a scarab. Scarabs and Khepri represent the cycle of the heavens and life, and because they roll poops into little balls, not despite it. And I think that's kind of beautiful. Khepri the Heracross is the lead for a Pokemon archaeologist who found him inside of a tomb. A horde of brightly colored Heracross were charged with guarding the place for centuries, and though they initially thought they were dealing with more robbers, they quickly realized the appreciation the researchers had for the place. The tomb had, unfortunately, already been quite ransacked, but Khepri happily went along with one of the archaeologists to see the world outside of his birthplace. He also served as an interesting subject of study for the burial rituals of the time. And finally, we have the Pikachu. I intended to do what I said and make an albino variant, but with just a little bit more interest. Mice and rats really have interesting variety, and one of them is the Rex trait, which I have also done, but it's a little less visible in rats and mice mostly, or maybe my previous interpretations of big old curls were a little bit more egregious. But yeah, beside the red eyes and pink features like the cheek, nose, and toe pads, I went with just a little bit of fluffiness to make this Pika look extra huggable. I named him Nimbus after the cloud because I felt like it also fit given Pikachu's sometimes summoning lightning storms. I imagine in-universe there are lots of Pikachu fanatics. I mean, we see it in Pokefans all the time that this thing is Yellow Mickey in and out of universe, but especially those who like the Pokemon beyond the iconography. Maybe some who are purists and appreciate the most iconic look, but probably a lot of others who just really love the Pokemon and have a bunch of different varieties. Nimbus is the Pokemon of one such fan, a Pokemon photographer with an affinity especially for Pikachu. He regularly stars in her shoots, acting adorable, like how he's cuddling his tail in this pose, but he can be a little high maintenance and spoiled, obviously, due to his upbringing. Boy is a diva, and he knows it. But those are this week's Pokemon. Which one turned out your favorite? I really like Khepri, but of course Nimbus is really cute, and as much as I'm just not a poison type kind of person, I am digging the concept of Tarmac. Also looking it up, apparently that is a brand name, but mainly in the UK. I'd only ever heard the expression and assumed it was an American thing. Anyway, give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe to catch more fun art challenges I do. Lots of critters and nerdy stuff at least once a week on Speed Paint Saturday. At that though, I'll leave this here, and I'll see y'all next time.